Marin had never put much thought into how a mining enterprise would operate. If she'd ever given it a passing thought, she would have written it off as a bunch of burly, sweaty guys digging holes in the ground and occasionally risking their lives when noxious gases and cave-ins occurred. If ever she'd put more thought into it, she'd have suspected a lot of moving parts. Machinery going to and fro, people lugging in their hauls, cleaners and mechanics working on equipment, cooks yelling for mealtime, and organizers looking over maps to route their next dig. All blanketed by an ever-present urgency of completing their work and filling their quota. Maybe it was due to Marin's lack of sleep, but that last part was entirely missing. As she and Mav meandered through the settlement, passing the living quarters, bathhouse, mess hall, and crudely designed temple, the expressions of most people were those of anxiety, concern, and frustration. "Wow," Mav said as they turned a corner, leading directly into a fence. Mav pressed his face against it. "It's like a hangar right before a big operation." Through the fence, draglines, dozers, loaders, and more sat in a large yard. Despite the dozens of vehicles, only 3 people stood in the center having an animated conversation. Too far away to hear, however. "Something's wrong," Mav said, his grip tightening on the fence. "Took you long enough?"
You'd think more of those vehicles would be on site by now. Or that, more people would be working.
The lot wasn't full. There were several open spots for other vehicles to park in, but that number paled in comparison to what should be out for work at the moment. "There's no holiday today, right?" Mav said.
For once, no. If there were, there wouldn't be nearly as many people out as there are.
"We need to see what's going on. Something could be really bad."
Or, there's a logical explanation for this and we're trying to find something that doesn't exist. Either way, we should look into it.
The headquarters of the operation wasn't difficult to find. Like many locations in which the boss resided, it was the largest structure in the center of the settlement. Its first floor's interior was utilitarian, basically a large room with some tables to sit by and a desk near a stairwell. A small group surrounded the desk, not bothering to keep their voices down. "They look official," Mav said. Marin nodded. The group consisted of 2 men and a woman standing opposite the receptionist, who sat at the desk. "Then what are we even doing out here?" a man on the right said. He was tall and skinny with light brown skin and dark curly hair that looked oiled and stood on end, likely due to constantly running his hand through it. "Assessing the situation," the other man said. "Carefully." This one was also tall, but portlier with pale skin. Gut and massive white mustache made Marin think of an old sea captain, either gruff, yet a big softy on the inside, or hell-bent on seeking and destroying his prey.
"Oh, may we help you?"
the receptionist said, looking over the desk at Marin and Mav.
"You don't seem to be our employees," the standing woman said. "Unless you're very new, or refuse to wear our uniforms for whatever reason."
This woman was also pale and portly, yet very short. She also looked the eldest of the 3, with many wrinkles lining her face. Her smile suggested she was like a stereotypical grandmother who wanted nothing more than to dote on her grandchildren with gifts and treats. The eyes her smile failed to reach, however, presented a woman who would shoot first and ask questions later, if she found hooligans lurking on her lawn.
"We're not your employees," Marin said. "We're members of a guild, and we're looking for work when we got here."
"Not our," the mustachioed man began, blinking his beady little eyes. "Then how did you get in here?" Mav thrust his thumb behind him. "The front door." "Not here. Our campsite." "The front gate." All their faces, including the small receptionist's, fell.
"No one stopped you?"
the skinny man said.
"No one was there,"
Marin said. The woman rolled her eyes, and the tall man ran his hand through his hair again. All the while, the mustachioed man slumped against the desk. "Do we not have any control here?" the mustachioed man said.
"What's going on?" Marin said. "Things feel off here. Maybe we can help." "What guild did you say you were from again?" the woman said.
"She didn't say yet," Mav said. Everyone looked at him and his innocent, clueless face.
"Apologies for him," Marin said. "We're an interim guild. Not yet official, but that doesn't mean we can't help."
The three had a private huddle for a couple of minutes, then beckoned them over. "All right," the mustachioed man said. "Where to start? My name's Colton Colbert. I'm in charge of this whole operation. This is Julio Morales, our lead surveyor. And this is Teresa Neubauer, who runs our mechanics team." "Pleasure," Marin said. "CC Corp has always been a small mining operation," Colton began. "Always going from one site to the next. None of our deposits have been hugely profitable, but we've always made do. But this site's different," Julio said. "My crew's been all over Mount Urgel, and the readings don't lie. There's a huge supply of spherolite and galena here. There's bound to be more. Maybe even silver if we're lucky. Or something even more valuable." "You seem very certain about that," Marin said. "Can your equipment tell every mineral that's in the mountain?" Julio huffed. "Not ours. We don't have the most up-to-date spatial viewing tech. But our readings are different here than they'd been anywhere else." "How so?" "Some of the pictures we got glowed." "I take it that doesn't happen normally?" "Which is why we rushed here as soon as possible," Colton said. "This is the biggest operation we've ever undertaken. We pulled out all the stops for it, and..." "We can't even begin digging," Teresa said. "Where we want to dig in the mountain is not even a half-mile to the south. Yet my vehicles end up demolished every time we take them out." "That's a lot of big, durable, and expensive equipment out there," Marin said. "And it simply got destroyed?" "None of our drivers saw what did it," Colton said. "But they claimed the land and the trees moved, and that the wind lifted our machinery into the air." "Wielders," Marin mumbled. "Likely eco-terrorists. Powerful ones, too." "You don't say," Julio said. "Actually, I do." Marin gave him a small smile. "Why didn't you guys just set up closer to the mountain?" Mav said. "Now we're asking the real questions," Julio said, throwing a glare at Colton. "We're here to mine what we need, not level the whole damn mountain," Colton said, toned short as if he was tired of answering this. "And if eco-terrorists are to blame for our grievances, then leveling all those trees between us and the dig site would only make them angrier, wouldn't it?" "Have you contacted the peacekeepers?" Marin asked. Julio scoffed. "And let them kick us out of here? All to let their buddies from Gale Corp or Mitsui Mining take the profit once they've handled the punks?" "The peacekeepers wouldn't do that to you," Mav said. "And here I thought you had a brain in there," Julio said. "Don't you know anything about the peacekeepers?" "Julio," Teresa said, voice low and dangerous. Mav's mouth worked, but he said nothing. He looked down as if ashamed. Marin had figured he'd defend the peacekeepers more, but she wouldn't complain that he was keeping his mouth closed. "As you can see, we're also wielders," Marin said. "We could apprehend your assailants, then you could continue your business." "Start is more like it," Julio said. "Which would be good," Colton said. "We have more employees and their families to feed than ever before. And so many newcomers who left their old lives behind to work for us. Not to mention all my people in the hospital after the attacks," Teresa said. "Insurance premiums might rise because of it." Colton placed his palm on his forehead. "If this doesn't get resolved soon, this will hurt a lot of good people." "Don't worry," Mav said, punching his palm. "We'll handle this." "Hold on," Marin said. "We'll take the job, but we have to talk about payment first." "A little bold of you, not being an official guild yet," Julio said. "We can't charge official guild rates, but by law, we have to get paid for the work we do. It also helps us when we eventually become a legitimate guild." "Great, then do the job and we'll pay you." "Enough, Julio." Colton sounded worn out. "She's not asking for anything unreasonable. However, if eco-terrorists are involved, this will be a big job that will cost a lot of credits. We've already spent most of the money we've taken out on our last loan. It may be more credits than we can afford." "That doesn't matter," Mav began. "Mav," Marin said. "What? They need help." "And we need payment.
I already told you we can't afford to do a job without getting some form of compensation.
She held his dark stare. It seemed more thoughts than he was used to crowded his noggin. But eventually, the gears ceased spinning, and he settled his eyes into a glare. Had Marin the will to care, she might have found it frightening. "We can spare 300 credits, Colton said after conferring with the receptionist. "Also, free room and board until the situation is resolved. Does that seem fair?"
That sounds perfect,
Marin said, taking out her size-changing tablet. Mav stormed out of the building after the transfer had finished. Marin found him nearly a block down the road, leaning against a building and tapping his foot. 20 feet ahead of him, families walked in and out of the mess hall. "Satisfied?" Mav asked, an edge to his voice.
Not until you actually listen to me,
Marin said.
Those people need our help, and we're going to give it to them.
But only if we get paid? Marin let out a strangled groan, allowing her frustration to surface.
We need money, Mav. We have enough. For now. What do you think will happen if we keep doing work for free? Eventually, we'll run out.
If we're running low, then we can just charge people who can afford it.
What do you mean by afford? Because Colton can afford our rate. That woman in Linux could have as well. And so could that hunter on the road.
But they were average citizens. They didn't look that rich.
So I guess when our funds are depleted, we'll be lucky enough to find obscenely rich clients who just so happen to have a job for us, and then they'll definitely overpay us.
That's not what I'm saying.
It sounded like you are.
Mav left the wall and stood before her, a fire in his eyes, like the one she'd seen in Secker Research's basement. Look at these people, Marin. They need help. They need us.
Shifting gears after losing an argument. Classy.
Mav shook his head. Well, we got paid, didn't we? Shouldn't we get going, boss?
Am I the boss? Because it seems like you're making all the decisions around here.
Mav turned away, looking back at the people entering the mess hall. I just want to help the people.
And we will.
Marin began reaching for his elbow, but she pulled her hand back. Why should she try and comfort him? He was completely in the wrong.
But first, I want to do a bit of research. Figure out if there are any known terrorists or eco-terrorists in the vicinity. Shouldn't take more than 15 minutes.
Mav deflated. All right.